It's my absolute honor to moderate, together with Žiga, today's business breakfast on a very important topic of Slovenian competitiveness with very distinguished guests. But before we start, let me congratulate Aisha for her appointment well deserved, and we will help you, believe me. The AmCham Investment Committee and the whole AmCham advocate a stable, predictable, and supportive investment environment, not just for domestic, but also for foreign investors. We bring the experience and proposals from AmCham members to the attention of policymakers. It may seem that we are all the time repeating the same proposals and pointing out the same weaknesses of the investment environment in Slovenia. But this is only so because change is so slow in our country. Or even worse, over the past 2 years, we have been facing repeated increases of taxation and other changes and the lack of dialogue with the business community. In the past time, you might remember, we wanted to become among the 15 most competitive countries in the world. Unfortunately, this year, IMD worsened our rank. We are now 42nd, and the best place was 35, unfortunately. One of the reports which showed that the investment environment in Slovenia is going worse was the annual survey by the German-Slovenian Chamber of Industry and Commerce. We invited the president of the chamber, Mrs. Dagmar Bornstein, to share the insights from their survey and her own recommendations for making our investment environment better. Over the last year, the Slovenian Chamber of Commerce and Industry has repeatedly complained about the lack of dialogue with the government and of the attention paid to their views and proposals. We invited the president of the chamber, Mr. Tibor Šimonka, to share with us the main messages they would have for the government if the government was here to listen. Together with these two distinguished guests, our own Mr. Blaž Brodnjak, the president of AmCham Slovenia, will share his views and the views of AmCham members. In our discussion, we'll try to address several topics. We'll talk about the high-level taxes and what it means for the net earnings of employees, the public competitiveness and development of the economy, and the financing of public services and the welfare society. We'll also discuss other pressing issues, such as the lack of qualified workforce, the supportive environment for innovation, the current bleak economic outlook, and the latest regulatory and policy changes. May now invite our guests, Dagmar, Blaž, Tibor, to join us on the stage. Please. Žiga, now is your turn.
That's it. Good morning also from my side. I will be really short because we have a lot of content to cover today. So I would just say that in the times when companies all over the globe are facing like global issues like global warming, the demographic shift, aging of population, challenges and threats of AI, we're in Slovenia, most companies in the current days are dealing how to implement more strict timekeeping measures to monitor when their workers will come to work, when they will go to lunch, and when they will leave. So this is where we are currently in Slovenia, and I think this is really not contributing to us being more competitive and not focusing on the right side. So I think it's best we go straight to the content now. One of the most current pressing issues is the new proposal of the flood recovery law, which introduces new tax burdens, unfortunately, for the economy. One is the temporary 5-year increase of the corporate income tax by 3 percentage points from the current 19% to 22%. And the other is also a temporary introduction of a 5-year tax on the balance sheet of banks. Mr. Brodniak, since this tax directly affects also you in the NLB group, how do you comment it? And also in the light that the ECB has also last week released their opinion about it, and they highlight some of their worries about this kind of taxes on banks. How do you see it?
I'm less concerned about banks. I'm more concerned about the governance context. I wish good health to the Prime Minister, but he just announced today that he might have to go to the surgery and the country will be run by Luka Mesic for 3 days or whatever. And this is a person that got 4.8% vote of the nation. And currently we will be in a situation where 7 out of 20 ministries will be run by people that have been shown the doors or have barely entered the parliament. And this is no longer funny. Democracy has obvious deficiencies. These are not people we selected collectively as a nation. No one can ever act as a supervisory board member of any serious business unless elected by the majority vote of the AGM. And no one can run any business without majority support of the supervisory board. Guys, democracy has obvious deficiencies. My first call for this nation is to change the election system because this does not work. The nation is represented 7 ministries out of 20 by people we didn't vote for. This is no joke any longer. That's a serious, serious challenge. And this finally has to be addressed by all political parties because this is no way, this is no credible leadership. These are not people we selected. Secondly, of course, then you have, because you have such a governance context, a situation that the country will be run temporarily by a person that excludes, that ignores, that brings laws in front of the parliament without discussion in the Economic Social Council, that ignores 15 associations representing 90% of the country's GDP. This is also no joke any longer. Is the economy of this country totally irrelevant? Is the banking system in the bankocentric economic model totally irrelevant? I mean, this is, guys, extremely serious situation. This is extremely serious situation. Banks will survive. Small banks will bleed. Big banks will be even stronger. Do we want more big, strong banks, or do we want normal competitive environment? Again, you have to ask yourself this question. Because for NLB, this is 6-7% of profits. For small banks, it might be 30% of profits, which is eating into their capital base, which is eating into their lending capacity, which is weakening them, right? We contribute willingly to the society. We said this. We said voluntarily we will chip in money, you know? But, you know, having an environment that is predictable, that is balanced, is extremely important. And of course, the colleague from Germany will tell this very clearly. You know, in comparing Slovenian environment with German and Austrian is simply impossible because we don't compete with made in Germany and made in Austria internationally in terms of perception. We compete with Hungary, we compete with ever more with Croatia, we compete ever more with Serbia, and so on. You know, and it is relevant how they are taxed there. And we have one of the highest tax burdens, if not the highest in the world when it comes to labor, when it comes to engineering capacity, when it comes to, you know, leadership capacity. Here we are taxed down to 33% of net payout, right? And then you increase the burden also for the corporate income tax. And this is simply not the right thing to do. And where I'm totally puzzled is the spend of the budget. 2019, actual spend 10 billion. 2023, only 4 calendar years, announced spend 16 billion. Which business can spend 60% more in 4 years? Show me one business, unless you are developing globally like hell, and you are justifying this with revenue. It is simply totally irresponsible. Totally irresponsible. And then you take from businesses, you weaken them in international global context. This is a small open economy, guys. What we can sell at home, we produce in 2 weeks. 50 weeks of production has to go abroad. It has to go abroad. And it matters where you sell and to whom you sell. And you know, I'm finishing in a sentence. European Union has lost compass 15 years ago. 15 years ago, European economy was bigger than US economy. Today, US economy is 33% bigger. because of a couple of totally illusional decisions. First, no nuclear, illusional decision, right? Second, rights on rights on rights on rights on rights instead of responsibility and hard work. We are talking only about rights of different animals, and we don't work. We are an old society based on all money, too much vacation, and too few children. It is so simple.
We will dive deeper in the other questions regarding taxes and the competitive environment of Slovenia. Mr. Šimonka, as a representative of Slovenian commerce and industry, do you feel you were properly involved in the latest preparations of the flood prevention recovery law? Were you even involved, and how do you see the proposals?
First of all, thank you for the invitation, and I will apologize myself because I didn't know the conversation will follow in English, but I prefer to speak Slovene. So what to add? Kaj še dodati k temu, kar je gospod Brodnjak povedal? Pri tem zakonu o obnovi in razvoju, kar nas najbolj preseneča in seveda moti, je to, da govorimo o zneskih 6-7 milijard, ki naj ne bi bili sploh povezani z direktno popoplavno škodo. Skratka, to nakazuje skoraj da neko državno predatorstvo na neke milijarde, ki se bo zbrale, od kje se bo zbrale, seveda z dodatnimi obremenitvami. Vemo, da nas bo leta 2025 čakalo novih 3-4% novih obremenitev. V zadnjem obdobju smo dobili že 3 odstotne točke novih davčnih ali pa prispevnih obremenitev. Skratka, ob zavedanju, da je naša ekonomija, naše gospodarstvo med najbolj obdavčenimi v Evropi, kar se tiče socialnih prispevkov, smo znotraj OECD-ja na prvem mestu, najviše oprispevljeni, če temu tako rečem. Skratka, če to vzamemo v ozir, da namesto tega, kar je vlada obljubljala, da bo razbremenila gospodarstvo, se zdaj pojavlja z novimi davki in prispevki, in to v obdobju, ko druge države, ko je recesija na vratih, trka na vrate, vemo, da Avstrija je v recesiji, Nemčija je več ali manj tam. Mi bomo, če imeli še zadnjo četrtletje padec, bomo tudi tehnično v recesiji. Skratka, v teh okoliščinah, da si nekdo lahko privošči to, da dodatno obremenjuje gospodarstvo, da ignorira povsem makroekonomsko in pa finančno okolje, skratka, to je nepojemljivo. Jaz ne vem, je to, včasih smo govorili, da so sindikati ugrabili državo, sindikati javnega sektorja predvsem, ti so še vedno na sceni. Zdaj je Levica ukradla ne samo socialno politiko, tudi davčno politiko v tej vladi. Skratka, grozno, slabo se nam piše, če se to ne bo ustavilo in če enkrat zdrava pamet seveda ne bo našla dovolj prostora in razumevanja.
Hvala, thank you. Ms. von Bornstein, we know that orders in some industries are already falling. Some countries in the EU are already in technical recession, including Germany. How do you see proposing additional tax burdens to the companies with the new flood prevention recovery law in these circumstances?
So first of all, thank you very much for having me in this esteemed circle of presidents as a representative of the German business community here in Slovenia. I'm really happy and thankful for that. With regard to the recent flood, I must say, we as a German business community, we feel really pity and with regard to that really huge natural disaster that has hit the country, really. And all my friends and partners called me when they read in the newspaper 85% of the country have been destroyed. No. So I was looking around, sitting in Ljubljana and telling my friends, okay, I have not counted, but 85% seems a little bit too much. That is what your government has published first, and a damage in the height of 99 billion euros. So I was irritated like that. After that, I was thinking, okay, now they are collecting money. From whom? And it was a very fast answer to myself. It will be the companies. It will be the business. And then I talked to my business community, to the German companies in Slovenia, and they told me, what what they have done immediately after the flood. They have supported their employees, giving them money, giving them free time to recover their houses, to help their friends, to help their families. They have supported the local communities, you know, to build up streets, to make bridges. Even the German government sent THW, our technical support team, and even the military to build up bridges. They have supported other companies. You know, there was a huge solidarity within the business community to help each other, to help their people, their teams, and to build up that damaged country as fast as possible. So I was really proud on that mood, yeah, and on that support. And now, you know, we get the bill.
The stick.
We get the stick. And, you know, that is what I cannot understand. So it is true, we have to rebuild, we have to support, but supportive can only be a company which is successful and which is not burdened and squeezed by taxes and by all other burdens. So I guess there is no logic in it. You should support your companies to be really successful, to be competitive, to be able to export, to engage, but not, you know, to burden them as much as possible and to squeeze out money as much as possible. So when I talk to our business community, they have been really frustrated, irritated, and as you can imagine, we don't agree with what is planned.
Thank you.
Not very positive outlook, I would say. Kearney, the consulting company, prepared for us a presentation about the competitiveness of Slovenian economy, and I would like to invite Mr. Marko Derča to make a short presentation. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'll be brief. We wanted to show a snapshot how we see the Slovenian economy in comparison to other groups of countries that we typically observe, or we also put ourselves in comparison. And if we observe, this is a snapshot of 22 data. Also growth, if we see at CAGR from last 5 years, shows similar results. Where we see that we still lag behind the competitiveness through GDP per capita, which is like the most often KPI that we use. Also, this is in recent years changing towards more sustainable KPIs. But interestingly, the labor productivity is like the most important KPI that affects the most GDP per capita, so the general KPI that we so much like to use, meaning the productivity of companies, how much they produce per employee, per working hour, how much value they add, affects the most. Yeah? There is also an interesting correlation that innovation, strongly supports the productivity. Labor productivity. So lacking behind innovation, technologies, implementing technologies, not just talking about them, but actually implementing them, has a strong correlation on how our strong economy is, or will be in the near future when some of the technologies will mature. Interestingly, on the third graph where we see Slovenian GI index, we have one of the highest number of researchers per employees that are, working employees population, which is one of the highest, but sort of the index, how we transfer that innovation in the economies is actually much, much lower than we would see from some other areas. We're still predominantly export-oriented. And FDI-wise, so foreign direct investment, we're still quite attractive, although this is changing. In the last 2 years, or I would say in the last 3 years, the investors, global investors, prefer to invest into economies, into companies where they use top three criteria, which is transparency and regulation, so predictability, how actually the governments, the tax environment is predictable for their investments. The second one is innovation capability and capacity, so how the overall economy, the environment is supporting innovation. And the third one is taxes. Some years ago, taxes was first and so forth, but now the predictability of the environment is the most important factor, which changes the flow of FDI from countries in development, from markets in development to more mature markets that tend to be more predictable in terms of regulation. One interesting insight, so we also, to support this, we look at a snapshot how this is the analysis of the performance, EBITDA performance in this case, of the SDH portfolio, so snapshot of the portfolio of Slovenian companies that are in majority or predominantly owned by Slovenian government, where we see that the performance is still lagging behind the best. We typically benchmark against first quartile, so not the average, not the medium, but like the top 25 or top 25% of companies. And the gap, sort of the performance potential, if the portfolio would move closer to the first quartile, it's on EBITDA perspective, and it's a very conservative estimation, around 1.2 billion euros annually, so each year. If we look at the EBIT, it's even worse, indicating that the investments and that the company is spending more for investments, for financing, which is not yet being reflected in the performance. Although some companies are performing, above the first quartile benchmark, the majority of portfolio is still lagging behind. It has a huge potential also to add on the KPIs that we saw on the first page. Last page, how we see the global outlook. The volatility is here to stay. We're a bit more optimistic than what we can observe on the local environment. Of course, observing each country, each market might be have a different perspective or a different situation, also due to geopolitical situations. But globally, the globalization flow of funds is not slowing down. It's growing, maybe slower than years before, geopolitical tensions, but it's still flowing. So the money is there. Investors are looking for strong economies where to invest in a predictive manner, as mentioned. Inflation is going down. The labor markets are going to stabilize, and as I mentioned, the FDI is sort of for me a strong indication how the markets, because the investors are looking forward, how the markets are being prepared for the future. And I would emphasize again the predictability of the regulatory environment and capacity for innovation being the most important elements that we keep the inflow of FDI and thus, have the power for further growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Marko. But before you leave us, may I add one question? Do you see changes in the group of investors interested in Slovenia or coming to Slovenia? I mean, country-wise, or is there a change, or who are the most,
active?
Active.
There is when the crisis is on the horizon, there is a blood in the air, as the investors call it. So more private equities we observe, where they are still full of cash typically, and they're looking for new opportunities. So more private equity type of investors, less traditional companies. Yeah.
But country-wise?
Country-wise here in the region.
Yes, or globally. From where are they coming?
From where? From mature markets, I would say. From mature markets to mature markets, yeah, from more stable markets. Yeah.
Thank you, Marco. Predictability. I mean, I have to point out that at AmCham, and particularly at the AmCham Committee for Investments, we have been for years pointing out the predictability. Unfortunately, we can notice that we are going a different way. But Dagmar, your recent survey among foreign investors in Slovenia raised a lot of attention during the summer, I would say. Your report points to both positive and negative aspects of the investment environment. And of course, AmCham Investment Committee tries to propose improvements in business environment and advocate them with the government. So let me ask you, if the government was a goldfish and it would give you 3 wishes, what would you ask them to change? Where are the differences from your survey compared to the analysis made by Kearney?
Thank you so much for that question. I was really looking forward to tell you my 3 wishes to the government. First of all, I can confirm what we have heard right now. It's the same result what we have got with our survey. So predictability with regard to economic regulations was most important and was seen as worst here with regard or compared to the whole region. So that was really a big topic. But coming back to my 3 wishes, first of all, I would ask the government, don't see and treat business as an opponent or more as an enemy, as I can feel it here. See business and companies as a supporter of your goals to increase welfare of the country, because that is what business is. And you know, I'm a child of social market economy, soziale Marktwirtschaft in Germany. You know, we experienced how good it is to work closely together within a society, business, politics. Let's find the best way for the country, for the environment, for the people. And let's not be opponents one against the other. And everything what I'm reading here in the news, what I'm experiencing when we are trying to address the government is, you are the other side of the table, you know, you are not us. And that is what I cannot understand and how I'm not grown up, you know. It's totally different, I would say, in our country. My second wish would be give your people an incentive to deliver excellent performance. That is what you can do in that country, and that is what is needed. You know, give your people, you know, don't tax away the biggest share of the salary, because who would, you know, be engaged, motivated, be ambitious to deliver best performance if it's not worth it? So that's a simple calculation. So let the people earn what they are really performing. And my third wish would be invest in your people by an education which opens up the future. You know, I'm here since 1.5 years. I'm talking a lot to young people, and when I am asking them, what are you studying? What is your education? I would say in 3 or 4 times I get the answer, tourism. Okay, tourism is really an important branch and sector for Slovenia, also for Bavaria, where I am coming from, all fine. But if you have a country which want to open up the future, which want to be competitive worldwide, you need mathematics, you need physics, you need technical engineering. And you know, you have the people who are able to study that. But you are going for tourism. Excuse me, that is not the way we can move forward. And we will come back later to that topic, but these are my 3 wishes. Companies are not opponents. Give incentives to your people and do an education which is opening up the future for the people and for the country.
May I follow up a little bit? Last week when we met and discussed, today's business breakfast, and I told you that we are advocating constantly with the government how to improve the business environment, and that they don't really always listen to us. And you then ask me, but why they don't listen to you? And I didn't know the answer. Maybe you know the answer.
It's, I'm guest in your country. It's hard to speak open, but in my eyes, it's really a little bit history. It's what you have experienced in the last, let's say, 40, 50 years. It is not what we have done after the Second World War in Germany. We stood together building up that country again. And here it was a kind of a ideology you followed, which is still in the head of the people.
Blaž, would you add something to that? Why they don't listen, or how to better be positive? How to convince them to listen? That we are not the opponent.
I'm done convincing, frankly. I've been saying the same, spitting out the same words for 20 years. And it's sad.
Yeah.
The fact that the largest economy in terms of our export markets doesn't get a meeting is a negligence.
Absolutely.
Full stop. This is simply negligence, on the verge of gross negligence. Germany is the largest export market of Slovenia. That's totally ridiculous. That's irresponsible, regardless who is still partisan and who is still domobranec. No? Because this is actually the main subject of discussion. Public versus private. This means partisan versus domobranec. We miss the topic, right? If you're talking about the health system, if you're talking about the educational system, we always connect public with state-owned, which is total misperception. It is paid by public cashier, that's why it's public, not because it's performed in a state-owned hospital, which is totally inefficient. As a basic principle of health system, that doesn't work exactly because we don't get out of the forest of being partisan or domobranec. No? So it's not connected to Germany, it is a bit of our own misconception. Because then again, a discussion between private and public is, are you religious or not? It's just polarizing divide. You are religious, that's why you are domobranec. I am not, that's why I'm partisan. And that's why we can't cooperate. We can't collaborate because you're coming from a different value system. Which is totally ridiculous because in Slovenia we are all center-left, without exception. The rightest of the Slovenian governments ever was the most social democrat government in terms of how they actually treated people, how they will sending money all over the place. And this is not going to be changed until, I think, unfortunately, there would be a generational change of couple of independent... Let me just finish, please.
No, I just wanted to add, look, we are so young here in the audience, so there is a generational change.
Of a couple of independently minded guys and boys and girls that are willing to chip in idealistically because, these guys can't. They're still in the forest. Whomever you look at, it's his or she is still in the forest. Guys, come on, get out of the forest. No, the world is a beautiful place. Let's do business. Let's not be stuck in the forest. This is counterproductive. I'm so envious. I, of course, want every success to them. But, people in Ljubljana, young kids from Ljubljana born here with golden spoons in their mouth, don't understand that half of the country is half an hour or less drive from Austria or Croatia. My first pair of jeans was not bought in Trieste, as for Ljubljana people, it was bought in Zagreb. Because it is from Ptuj, much, much closer to Zagreb and Graz in Austria than to Ljubljana. And people speak German and speak Croatian. better than Ljubljana people. Fluent. Right? And this is no joke. I'm provoking now. Because this means if in Croatia, which has been doing marvelous things in terms of stimulating business in last years, introducing social contribution cap, reducing labor cost, taxation of labor, attracting digital nomads with specific additional, incentives, working also educational system, especially Serbia on digital project, right? Digital Serbia project. We have employed 100 people in Serbia in 12 months and only a couple in Slovenia, because Slovenian educational system produces 300 IT experts, ICT experts, and they are now cutting money to 250. Talking about engineering capacity, right? And we all need to digitize, we all need to automate, we all need to robotize, we all need to, introduce CRM tools, and all stuff. And we don't have people, and we will not be able to import people. And I'm finishing. The best people will go to Zagreb and Graz. Yeah. And they are leaving. You can't measure the population by number of inhabitants. It's a qualitative structure of this population that matters. We are bringing cheap labor, we are exporting brain.
Which is really a pity. Tibor, it seems that it's quite clear what the government should do to improve the investment environment. Yeah? Would you agree with that? However, as president of the Slovenian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, you often comment that the government is not paying enough attention for your proposals, that even worse, the changes in taxation or labor regulations are going into the opposite direction. So please explain us how the recent government measures will impact the competitiveness of Slovenia, of the Slovenian economy.
Ja, zdaj, kar je bilo rečeno o obremenjevanju z novimi davki prispevki, se ne bi ponavljal. Tukaj je bilo prej omenjeno, tudi gospod Dača je v svojem ekspozeju povedal, da produktivnost pri nas je relativno nizka. In nizka produktivnost je predvsem zaradi tega, ker se premalo vlaga v razvoj, inovacije, raziskave. Zato smo mi tudi bili pobudniki partnerstva z vlado in znanstveno raziskovalno sfero o tako imenovanem zavezništvu, kjer naj bi se povečali prispevki države za inovacije, raziskave in razvoj na 1,25% bruto domačega proizvoda. Vsaj toliko pričakujemo, da bi seveda tudi zasebni sektor vlagal. In to je osnova za to, da mi naredimo nek preboj. Ena od osnov. Seveda poleg tega, kar si ti omenila, na kar bom mogoče prišel malo kasneje nazaj, ker vemo tudi, Slovenija je izvozno naravnana država, ekonomija, ampak če pogledamo strukturo tega izvoza, mi izvažamo v glavnem neke dele, materiale, sklope, vsaka čast vsem tistim izjemam, ki seveda izvažajo in proizvajajo sisteme, naprave, kjer tudi igramo neko močnejšo vlogo, bodi si na evropskem ali pa na globalnem svetovnem trgu. Ampak pretežno smo mi še vedno, obsojeni na to, da imamo relativno nizko dodano vrednost in ta dodana vrednost se čez noč ne more veliko dvigniti oziroma povišati, ukolikor ne bo močnejšega vlaganja v inovacije, razvoj in raziskave. Skratka, tukaj smo zavezani k temu in če bo to vlada dojela in izvrševala, žal moram povedati, da zdaj ta nova ARIS agencija državna, ki naj bi skrbela za to, ima mnogo večja pooblastila kot prej, Agencija za razvoj in raziskave Slovenije, ima veliko več sredstev, bo imela zdaj na voljo, ampak števila zaposlenih pa niso povečala. Sploh ne, to se pravi, da ne mislijo resno in še niso začeli niti delati, ni kriterijev, ni meril za vrednotenje, kako se bodo inovacije vrednotile. Da ne rečem to seveda, da bi paralelno k temu tudi davčni sistem moral biti prilagoden, da stimulira. Tukaj, ko gledam, sem zelo vesel, da vidim pretežno, se oproščam vsem tistim, ki so blizu moje generacije, ampak sem vesel, da je toliko mladih tukaj. In to, kar je prej Blaž povedal, to veseli na teh mladih sloni naš preboj ali pa napredek. In tukaj davčna politika, žal, mi smo kot zbornica predlagali mini davčno reformo, zdaj kot nek protiutež tej blesarij, ki ne morem drugače reči, zdaj le temu nabiranju milijard na zalogo skozi ta zakon o obnovi in razvoj, ne da bi sploh vedeli, kaj je tisti razvoj, kaj ni prioritet, ni komparativnih analiz, kaj je za Slovenijo prav, da razvijamo in vlagamo. No in ta mini davčna reforma predvsem sloni na tem, da bi stimulirali mlade talente, mlade strokovnjake v podjetjih, ki so nosilci tehnološkega preboja in razvoja. In ta davčna reforma je nič posebnega, ko smo za protiutež oziroma za protiargumentacijo dobili od vlade, ja, vi bi radi člane uprav pa direktorje
razbremenili,
tako, razbremenili davke in prispevke in radi bi imeli više plače. Ne, mi smo rekli, ni treba posegati v 5. razred. Dajmo ta močan višji srednji razred čim bolj stimulirati. To, kar je Blaž povedal, nam odhajajo start-upi v Zagreb, na Rijeko. Mi izgubljamo ta potencial, ki je sposoben tega preboja. In nihče noče tega videti, noče uslišati, ne vem, ali res verjamejo, da je danes ta populizem, saj narod ni tako nor, ta mlada populacija ni nora. Danes v sekundi po iPadu lahko zaračunajo, kje lahko dobijo neke boljše priložnosti, kaj so davčne primerjalne razlike med ekonomijami in državami in regijami. Mobilnost je velika, praktično niti ni potrebno več toliko mobilnosti, saj je digitalizacija prinesla in naredila svoje. Skratka, vkolikor te davčne reforme nije na vidiku in se bojim, da je v tej vladi niti ne bo na vidiku, bodimo realni, še leto pa pol se lahko kaj naredi, potem so že predvolilni cirkusi in manifestacije in nalaganja, če temu tako rečem. In tem letu pa pol, zdaj ob tem, da se fokusira, vse se fokusira na to protipoplavno obnovo. Z vsem spoštovanjem do vseh tistih, ki so bili prizadeti, ampak ta problem je relativno lahek in v znesku sploh ni tako zelo velik. Mi ga ocenjujemo, da je gospodarstvo, naprimer v tej protipoplavni katarzi nekje bilo oškodovano tam med 350 in 400 milijoni največ. In da vsa ostala infrastruktura...
I mean, prove that to the government. I mean, the difference is obvious.
They didn't listen.
I mean, that's...
Tako da, in si ne predstavljamo, kako lahko nekdo sploh pride z predlogom, če rečemo, da je skupna škoda nekje tam dobre 3 milijarde, kako lahko nekdo pride s predlogom, in to naj bi šlo zdaj v kratkem še letos v parlament, z zakonom o obnovi in razvoj, da za 7 milijard sploh ni nič, nobene podlage, nobene baze, kaj se bo s tem financirali. Ob tem, da za prejšnje vprašanje, kar je potrebno za to, da se premakne Slovenija višja, ker hočemo biti višjo socialno, vse mi zagovarjamo višjo socialno državo, vse smo vsi del te socialnih storitev in socialnega standarda, ampak brez ekonomije, žal, brez močne ekonomije, to ne bo šlo. In eden od osnovnih pogojev za to je vlaganje v inovacije, raziskav, razvoj, v davčno prijazno okolje in seveda tudi, kar je bilo danes že rečeno, sej ne gre zdaj za greenfield investicije v tujino. Mnogo naših podjetij je neprestano v nekih komunikacijah in partnerstvih z tujimi podjetji, gre za neke ideje in načrte o skupnih vlaganjih, o tem, kaj bomo skupaj razvijali, katere kapacitete bomo imeli tukaj, kaj v Nemčiji, kaj v Avstriji, kaj v Srbiji, kaj ne vem, kjerkoli že, ampak ko partnerji vidijo, da je trend povečevanja obremenitev, da je okolje postaja vedno bolj neprijazno, se ti načrti najmanj ustavijo, če ne sploh dajo v predal. Ne gre samo za čist greenfield projekte, gre za ogromno teh, kjer smo skupaj s partnerji v Evropi ali pa globalno v nekih povezavah že tradicionalno, že desetletja. In to so vse negativni signali, ki jih sporočamo.
Hvala, Tibor. Blaž, the surveyed companies are worried about the future economic outlook, about the inflation, about energy prices, labor costs rising. Does this mean that we might be heading into recession? in Slovenia? And what kind of measures and support would be economy need in such situation? What do we expect to be done from the government side?
Well, no one has a crystal ball, right? Talks of recession are lingering for 2 years, and we still have real economic growth, also in Central Europe generally. There is a single quarter or two, but generally we have an absolute real growth. Inflation in Slovenia is, of course, higher. Tensions and frictions in the system are growing because, of course, there is a lot of pressure for further salary increases, especially in public sector, which, of course, then immediately reflects in the real sector, which is eating, of course, into the cost base and is eating into the competitiveness. I said on various occasions that we are looking at very likely the biggest opportunity for this region in history, or at least in the last 100 years, because global supply chain has been significantly repositioning. And we are, a couple of hours drive from Bavaria, from Switzerland, from northern Italy, Austria. This is the most powerful industrial basin of Europe, right? Slovenia is one of the most industrialized countries in Europe in terms of participation of production, right, in the GDP. It's 28% of our GDP is actually production, physical production. And it's highly diversified. Tourism is 10%, but then you have automotive cluster of 10%. Then you have strong pharma with 10%. It's highly diversified. It's one of the most diversified economies of Europe as well. And in this respect, we are a bit, more resistant, to specific industry tensions or specific industry distresses, because we are exposed to specific industries less than maybe some other countries, which is good. So high diversification is good. It is, on the other hand, of course, complex. Being heavily industrialized means you need a lot of energy, right? So there are a couple of catch-22 questions we need to address, not in 4 years from now, but yesterday. So how will we produce energy, supply this energy 24/7 to our industrial outlets? Unless you want to deindustrialize your country, your industry needs, the energy. And you have now a couple of crisis areas, obviously no longer only Ukraine, now you have Middle East potentially exploding, now you have maybe some other as well. Will there be a recession? No one knows. But Slovenian economy has been resistant, very resistant. We've gone through the catharsis of one of the most indebted corporate economies globally in terms of corporate debt, right? And the leverage of corporates was extremely high. Now Slovenian companies are amongst the lowest indebted in Europe. And banks are strongly capitalized and totally over-liquid, which is totally a different situation to the previous crisis. So even if recession comes, we are already statically, but dynamically, we need to address the opportunity. Slovenia will keep growing, but will be growing with moderate rates. Region is, shooting, they are overtaking us rapidly. Last week I held a meeting with the Prime Minister, with the President of Montenegro, a young guy who was actually an apprentice in NLB years ago. We are exporting talents. He was for 7 years chief economist of EBRD for Western Balkans, and now he's the president of the country. And he has come out with a credible plan. This was a 20-minute speech I was so proud of. I was on the verge of crying, seeing this young guy pitching his country that well, because he was clearly positioning 5-year goal, entrance, accession to European Union, 26, we will fulfill all our obligations, 27, ratification year, 28, we are in. 10 years from now, we want to achieve and reach the development status of Republic of Slovenia, because they're our ideal. I look at him, how are you going to get there? He says, easy, 6 to 7% real growth. How we do it? He listed 7 projects.
Bravo.
7 infrastructural important projects that will make this country looking totally different. And this is northbound highway, which he calls a spine of the country, because it will connect Port of Bar with Serbia, which means Port of Bar will start exploding, because it's going to become the main port for Serbia with easy access. This is a spine of the country. They will connect highway of Croatia and Albania, which means hands of the country. They will start, of course, investing a lot in the renewables, because they have big lakes and mountains next to these big lakes. So power plants can be built easily, 200, 300 megawatt power plants, and they will be a big exporter of energy. And energy is gold. And these guys will be there, I tell you. Clear vision, 20 minutes.
Bravo.
Europe will give money, they're in. What are we doing? What is our vision? How will we address the historical opportunity coming our way? Which projects? Which energy objects? The last is hidroelektrana Brežice 8 years ago, 40 megawatt. Hidroelektrana Mokrice, stopped by the court now even. For crying out loud, people, I mean, this doesn't work, right? What is the leadership of this country going to say to us how we will address the historical opportunity that we're just looking at? We are actually weakening the economy by introducing further taxation because, believe me, competitiveness matters. It does matter.
Absolutely.
And countries in the regions are not sleeping. I was before, as a positive example, mentioning Croatia. Now I mentioned Montenegro. I wouldn't even start talking about, how great Serbia thinks of the business. When I'm talking to business people from the country, they have regular access and regular discussions with the establishment, which is, for example, a role model case from Germany. Of course, you want to talk to your business. Your business is your blood for future. And then, and I'm finishing, the problem is the static view. They say if we release the tax burden for the labor, then we will have a hole in the budget. That's a static view. You will be able to attract talent that is going to create more value. You will maximize the output then on the other side, and you will take from a bigger mass of the created value, right? It is a static view. Of course, for 2 years you might be bleeding, but this state has the capacity to fund 2 years. If we increase public debt from 10 billion in 2009 to 40 billion now and more, and everyone is still blaming banks, by the way. No, the banks got 5.5 billion, and it'll be practically repaid what we got, right? So if 2 billion is left, where is 28 billion of incremental debt? Where has this gone?
Good question.
Grilling of public sector, I tell you. Because it's totally inefficient, because we have 20,000 more employees in public sector in the last 5 years.
No, more.
Even better.
We have 60,000 more since 2003.
Okay, but this was establishment still of the country. So, the guys, we have historical opportunity. Let's put our act together and address this historical opportunity. And it's not by taxing the nation, and it's not by taxing the businesses. It's by getting rational, it's by getting responsible, it's by getting ambitious, and it's by applying dynamic instead of static view.
Bravo. That's what we need.
High cost of labor was mentioned today many times, and I think it's great now that we would see a short video that KPMG did, and they compared basically how much net salary you get from a certain gross salary in the countries that we are in the current region. So I would ask to roll the video, and we'll talk about it later.
Report and comparison of employees' net income in selected CE countries. We compared 7 countries, Croatia, Hungary, the Czech Republic, Poland, Slovenia, Slovakia, and Serbia, according to the employees' net income calculated from gross salaries. So who gets the highest net at 25,000 euros gross? The highest net gets the employee in the Czech Republic with 18.5 thousand, and the lowest in Slovenia with 16.62 thousand. Who gets the highest net at 54,000 euros gross? Again, the best ratio is in the Czech Republic, where the employee gets 39.96 thousand on their account, and the worst is in Slovenia with 32.51 thousand. With a gross of 100,000, it is the best for employees in Serbia, where they get 80,000, and the worst in Slovenia with 55.24 thousand. So who's the biggest loser? Unfortunately, in 2023, Slovenian employees are taxed the most and receive the lowest net payment compared to other countries included in the report. Some main takeaways of the analysis are: in all 3 scenarios, 25,000, 54,000, 100,000 euros, the employee taking home the lowest net salaries from Slovenia. The best positioned employee in all 3 scenarios is the employee from the Czech Republic, taking home the highest or second highest net income. The other 2 highest ranking countries on the net income chart are Serbia and Slovakia. Slovenia is among the top 3 countries when the level of tax and social security contribution within the total employee cost is being compared among CEE countries. Getting 80,000 euros, Serbia has the highest net income in the case of 100,000 euros.
Why did you stop the analysis at 100,000 euro? Just questioning.
Yeah.
Guys, the best talents want 15, 20, 25 net. Forget it. Do the analysis again. And then you will see the difference. There's a dent. There is a dent. In Croatia, 50% higher net payout at my gross. 5-0. In Serbia, 80. That's the reality.
Yeah, the numbers, it's something we all know, but when you see the comparison, it's, I think, even more shocking and revealing to everyone. Mr. Šimonka, just shortly, you already mentioned that you proposed the mini tax reform. Just shortly, what were the key points of your proposal to make this picture a little better?
Ja, na kratko. Vse je bilo že nekaj omenjeno. Kot prvo smo predlagali, da bi 2,5-kratnik povprečne plače bila tista meja, od katere se nehajo plačevati višji davki in prispevki.
Social cap.
Prispevki, tako socialna, oziroma mi temu pravimo razvojna kapica, to je prva stvar. In oziroma, da bi to dohodninsko lestvico mejo za olajšave postavili na 100.000 bruto, kar je prej tudi Blaž omenjal. Druga stvar, pri nagrajevanju poslovne uspešnosti želimo, da se absolutno veže to na plačo zaposlenega, ne pa na povprečno plačo v Sloveniji, to se pravi olajšave. Tretja stvar, ki je, da damo davčno spodbudo tistim podjetjem in pa tistim aktivnostim in pa posameznikom, ki so inovativni, ki dosegajo neke razvojne kriterije. Četrta stvar je, da olajšamo oziroma da se dohodninska lestvica tudi indeksira, ker vemo, da je sedanja vlada je ukinila to, kar je prejšnja vlada kot nek prvi korak k davčni razbremenitvi plač naredila in je sicer ohranila višino davčne olajšave, ukinila je seveda vse ostale stvari, ki jih je prejšnja reforma prinesla, vendar indeksacija ni upeljala. Dalje želimo oziroma smo predlagali, da se uvede davek na nepremičnine. Davek na nepremičnine predvsem zaradi tega, ker je precej te filozofije pri nas Slovencih je ukoreninjene, da svoje premoženje hranimo v nepremičninah in seveda so te nepremičnine oziroma ta trg je relativno imobilen in prazna stanovanja niso v neki funkciji, pa tudi konec koncev predlagamo neko drugačno obdavčitev nepremičnin poslovnih subjektov, kot je danes. Dalje smo predlagali tudi, da bi v bodoče imeli primerjalno z ostalimi državami, ki so bile danes kot naši konkurenti navedeni, neko primerjavo, da se davčna razbremenitev pelje v skladu z nekimi razvojnimi trendi in pa z gospodarsko rastjo. To so nekje v glavnem te naši predlogi, te mini davčne reforme. Seveda detalje zdaj težko razlagam, ker to ni tudi čas za to, niti primerno okolje, vendar od te davčne reforme ni prav nič bilo, niti bom rekel z nekim spoštljivim razumevanjem sprejeto, kaj šele, da bi bilo implementirano v neko davčno reformo. Mi si, to, kar je bilo že rečeno danes, mi verjamemo v to, da bi morda v prvih 2 letih bila blagajna nekaj prikrajšana za davčne prihodke, vendar smo zelo prepričani, to, kar je tudi Blaž povedal, da bi v prihodnjih letih bili prihodki v davčno blagajno bistveno višji. Namreč davčna razbremenitev prinaša gospodarsko rast, prinaša nove rešitve, nove izdelke, stimulira se znanje, preboj, o katerem sem že prej govoril, In to je seveda tisto, kar država potrebuje. Vkolikor mi ne bomo primerljivi z državami, s katerimi konkuriramo, ki so neposredno zdaj postale naše tekmice, čeprav so bile 30 let nazaj daleč za nami, ampak predvsem na davčnem področju so naredile to, kar mi nismo naredili. Vkolikor pač tega ne bomo naredili, bomo to, kar je bilo že preomenjeno, Črna Gora tista, ki se bo z nami jutri primerjala, kar je seveda vse dobro privoščim Črni Gori in njihovi ekonomiji, vendar razlike so bile zelo velike še pred kratkim in obeta se pa ta konkurenčna tekma celo z njimi.
I think what Mr. Brodnjak said before, I think here is key that we can't look at things statically but dynamically. And if I remember correctly, the Minister of Finance said in response to the mini tax reform that he feels that we would like to have taxes as low as in Dubai and a Scandinavian welfare state. How do you comment this?
Taxes comparable to Croatia would, for a start, be good. We don't want Dubai. I would love taxes from Zagreb.
Yeah.
I would be happy with this minor step, right? We saw also Croatia is not the most competitive in terms of net payout, but it's better than Slovenia. A step in the right direction would be the right signal. Previous government did one small step in the right direction, but was at least a step in the right direction. It was insufficient, by any means insufficient. But if we do steps in the other direction, the gap is further widening, right? And businesses from Germany, from them, it's irrelevant. Slovenia, Croatia, European Union, again, it is closer to Zagreb from Vienna than to Ljubljana. Guys, look at the maps. It's less kilometers to Zagreb than to Ljubljana. Understand that, please. We do here, but the guys in in the government, not necessarily. In Grigorčeva, it is closer to Zagreb. And this is simply not the way. We need to be competitive. And how to figure it out, I don't know. With no dialogue, it's impossible. With 4.8% votes being a prime minister, it's ridiculous.
Ms. von Bornstein, in your survey, one of the key things that was also highlighted was not just the height of the tax in Slovenia, but also, I would say, the practices and the attitude of the tax authorities. What would you point out here and what the economy would like in this thing?
Thank you. Before I'm answering to that question, I would like to come back to what Blaž Brodnjak said recently about Montenegro and about the drive in that country. As far as I know, that drive has existed in Slovenia as well in the past. I mean, if you look at the countries, how long they need nowadays, today, to become a candidate of the EU, how long it needs to become a member of the EU. I'm not talking about Turkey, it's a never-ending story, but many other countries as well. It needs really a long time. And how long did it take for Slovenia? It was it was like that. They are Schengen, they are Eurozone, so it was really, I guess, the drive that you have described has existed in that country. And when we published our survey in March, my neighbor at home came to me to the garden, and he told me, I have seen you on TV. It's totally right what you have said. We have become lazy, we have become slowly, but we have been really smart in the past. And I would like to see Slovenia remembering how you are, who you are, and really getting back to that drive of the country, what you can do, just do it. Don't step back, don't get lazy, but, move forward. And coming back to your question with regard to tax administration, it's not about tax avoiding. It's not about not paying taxes or paying taxes like in Dubai. No, that's not the question. It's the attitude. It's the procedure. A tax administration must feel like a service provider to the people, to the customers. You know, these are taxpayers or customers of the tax administration. It's not, you know, addressing an administration you have to beg, but it's really they have to serve you. They have to make life easier for taxpayers, reduce the workload, digitalize it, make it really customer friendly. That is what is needed. And then everybody is paying his taxes as needed voluntarily. But don't make it hard, don't make it feel like an enemy. And finally, make it predictable. What is going on now, this discussion about the recovery fund, about new taxes, about new workloads, that is not how business can work, how business can be successful. They must foresee for a midterm and a long term what will happen, what will be in half a year, in 1 year, but not just for a sudden there is a flood and now we increase the taxes. That's no way, excuse me.
Thank you.
Blaž, I mean, there are many positive sides, I would say, in Slovenia still, not only negative in our investment environment. I mean, also the data shows that investors still plan to invest, so they're not withdrawing completely, pointing out that we have actually quite diligent labor force, quality of local suppliers. They're pointing out payment discipline, the infrastructure. Okay, the airport is, you know, still missing, and also the conditions for research and development. So, for what kind or what type of investors, from which sectors, which countries, do the benefits outweigh the shortcomings of the Slovenian environment?
Beautiful living was one, no? But, you know, Istria in Croatia is also beautiful, and Slovenes own 120,000 houses in Croatia. They will start registering their companies there, and it's happening massively. And this is no joke. No. This is no joke. So, Slovenian population is pretty entrepreneurial. You know, you have many businesses that are actually international businesses. You have the national character, the best described by the spirit of our athletes. We are among top 3 in the world in Olympic medals per capita. This says everything about the spirit of this nation. No, so we are competitive and we are ambitious. As a matter of principle.
Are we ambitious? Would you agree that?
As a population generally, I'm not talking about politics, no?
Yeah, and you know, yes, you're talking about sports, you're not talking about business. Not about politics, you are talking about sports, but that shows us exactly how the nation is feeling. They are ambitious, but not in every field.
Okay.
Exactly. So, just to finish, right? It is in the genes of this population. But finally, first, obviously, we need to do something with the election system because, you know, there has to be a government with a mandate, not horse trading, you know, on the welfare of the nation. And not horse trading on the competitiveness of the economy. Because this is exactly what's happening. In order to be in power, you horse trade. And you horse trade not to the benefit, you know, but of course you do the damage. Otherwise, this society is so propulsive that it's moving on. As said, we will develop our services in Belgrade. We will still make in 5 years from now, I don't know, 700 million of net profit. But you know, quality jobs will not be here. They might at certain point hopefully be in Zagreb, but they are currently in Belgrade. And that's painful to me to observe. It is painful. Businesses will do their job because they can staff internationally. No Slovenian company is bound to, you know, to staff in Slovenia. None of them. Production outlets, okay, but these also production outlets you can gradually move. You know? And the biggest problem is that we will move brains out. We will send our Slovenian talents offshore because it's going to be a requirement of theirs because they know this analysis. They will not work for 50 if they can work for 80. It's as simple as that. And Prague is also beautiful, guys. It is very beautiful. I love Prague as much as I love Zagreb, as much as I love Belgrade. A city with 1,000 construction sites, with Expo coming in 27. I was just at the opening of Sava Center, revitalized Sava Center. In summer next year, it's grand opening. You know, it's fantastic. It's 15 minutes from the airport, connected with the world. It's going to fly. Belgrade will have 3 million people in 10 years from now with a purchase power bigger than Slovenia. As much as we don't want to believe it, it's going to happen. It's simply going to happen. Because they run the country as a business, which is another extreme. We can be a nice balance, you know? We don't dream of Dubai. I hate Dubai. I hate Dubai. Because there is such a divide between the wealthy and the rest that are bleeding for this wealthy that this is not a culture I would want to live in. Slovenia is the second most egalitarian society in the world, according to Gini coefficient. The second most egalitarian, so we have high quality of life here. But you know, the opportunity that lies ahead of us has to be addressed in a propulsive and responsive way. We need 3 measures, we don't need more, and then it's irrelevant who is in power for the next 20 years, right? Simply reduce the labor burden on, the tax burden on labor. Let's agree what is the proportional response when it comes to property, this or other property, right? Because here there are some reserves, but let's agree simply on this measure. Let's finally do the pension reform with pension funds that are going to become an investor, right? Yep. As much as I love the fact that 8% of our ownership is in the hands of Croatian pension funds, why are there no Slovenian pension funds invested in the regional champion, making $500 million of profit? Why? Because we don't have them, right? And we know that in the best times, with full employment, we have to chip in from the budget 1.5 billion to the pension system. Because it's not sustainable. We need individual pension system in the sense that there are individual pension accounts. No, this is second pillar, and the third pillar is the educational. Educational. No? This means simply we need relevant people to be produced from the educational system. Not all study in tourism, but there might have to be some studying propulsive stuff for the future as well. As much as I believe in a boutique value proposition of Slovenian tourism, we're just not yet there, right? I would tear down Bernardin entirely and make a 5-star resort. There's one example. Like Molini Resort in Rovinj, fantastic, I love it. But in Bernardin is devastated, if you ask me, compared to Molini, right? And has the same background, Rovinj as old town and Piran as old town. No? Just as comparison again, how region is doing it and how we are doing it. We talk about tourism, but then it had to be a Serbian investor actually building the first 5-star hotel across the street, because Ljubljana was the only capital in Europe without a 5-star hotel, and we were talking about boutique tourism. Let's call things by the name, guys. Boutique tourism without a 5-star hotel in the capital. What kind of a value proposition is that? Right? And then logistics. What do we do with logistics, guys? We can make 1/3 of our GDP from logistics. That's such an opportunity that no one can dream of. But Montenegrins will do it with Port of Bar. The president of country said, Port of Bar and Port of Koper 30 years ago were same size. Now Port of Koper is 10 times bigger. We want to achieve the size of Port of Koper, which means they will grow 10-fold. That's ambition, that's vision. And they will build the infrastructure to enable this growth. And what will we do? We can't make this second railway track for what, 50 years? And you know, when it's going to be constructed, then we will only start doing the second one so that it's actually going to be a 2-track railway. And then we are talking about 10 billion damages now for this one flood and causing additional tax burden for one flood. There will be 15 floods in the next 10 years. What can investors expect if you, for one climate-related phenomenon, take so much money from the economy? How do you plan as an investor? What is next? What is coming when we get a Greek scenario of 800 millimeters in 48 hours? What will happen then? Another tax or what? You know, this is totally unpredictable. And that's, we were trying to guide the government. If you are taxing, for example, banks, make sure that you educate investors. This is really for covering of all climate-related phenomenon damages in the upcoming 10 years, and that's it. Because otherwise, what you communicate, we take 550 million from banks for this flood. Yeah, what about the next flood? What about the next drought? What about the next fire? What about the next hail? We had 13 centimeter, if you didn't know, diameter hail this year in Posavje. 13 centimeters, sorry, such a hail. It's coming. It is just coming. It's just new normal. It's no longer a surprise. It's a new normal. No? We have to face it. We have to face it as a society, not as, selective taxation of one industry, and then what? It's anyhow going to be challenged in front of the Constitutional Court, and then what? What if Constitutional Court annuls? What then? How credible is this scenario then? So it's somehow getting dangerous.
When we are talking about opportunities, because we would finish on the optimistic note.
No, but opportunity is there still.
Yes.
So just need to address it with these three measures.
I would explore with you just shortly and with all the guests a final opportunity, pension reform, which was one of the main reforms intended for this year, which probably will not happen. But still, we need to make some kind of reform in the next year because of commitments to the EU. Mostly when we talk about pension reform, everybody's scared we will have to work longer and so, but I also see it, as Blaž said, as an opportunity to develop the Slovene capital market, which is basically non-existent. We were both in Rovinj a few weeks ago, witnessing how Croatian pension funds already have 20 billion under their management. We in Slovenia, the whole pension funds have only 3 billion, which a lot is invested back into the economy. So Blaž, just shortly, and then all the guests, how can we explore the potential of the pension reform to build up the Slovene capital market that would benefit the society, the employees, and the companies, and all stakeholders?
No, it's easy. Just replicate what Croatians did. Unfortunately, it's going to take 20 years to get there, right? Because you have inflows gradually. They don't come overnight. But, as a matter of concept, private, institutional investors in form of asset managers, right? Because in Croatian public pension system, it is run by independent businesses, by Alliances, Raiffeisens, Estes of this world. So these are professional banks and insurance companies, right? You simply put this into the independent hands, because if you put it into the public hands, then forget it. Simply, corporate governance doesn't function there. It doesn't, proven, full stop, right? So you have to simply replicate what the guys have been doing that have been successful in doing that. It's not inventing hot water. Just first, let's agree. Capital is not evil. Capital is a leverage for growth. Capital is, basis for welfare because it creates value. It is invested and by that creates value. And then let's agree through an agreement in the society what level of social state is a common denominator and how we will finance this. Because if we don't create value in the economy, we can only take it by that. There is no alternative, right? So first, let's agree capital is good. And then once we agree capital is good, then it means that, of course, also investment of savings of population in capital is good, right? Because this capital is going to have more value, hopefully, throughout the prosperity and growth of this economy. And now, who is benefiting for the growth of NLB, for example, in the last 5 years since listing, is Croatian, of course, future pensioners, right? Not Slovenian, because we don't have that, simply. And we pay out extremely high dividend yield, and since the IPO, we've earned 100% in 5 years, right? I mean, why wouldn't this be for Slovenians the case? And then the other element of such a pension reform would be that you would have really, while understanding capital is good, attracting people also in capital market, being able to develop an atmosphere for the IPOs. There's been no single IPO of an SME in Slovenia in the last 20 years. Yes. Not a single one. This means we don't understand capital markets at all. We don't use capital markets at all. We are just bank-centric, and then we bitch that the banks are too expensive. Yeah, but guys, why didn't you go for capital? Then they would realize that it's maybe more expensive, even the capital, right? But it is leverage grows differently because then you can add that because banks are more confident to support you even more. And then you have acceleration of growth, and then you, of course, can leverage that into becoming Slovenian headquartered multinational. And that is what we need. There is this mindset, but let's enable that this is creating Slovenian, Croatian, Serbian, Montenegrin headquartered businesses because they are regional, because they have different view on the corporate social responsibility. They invest in the society differently than multinationals from the other side of the planet. It simply is the fact. It simply is the fact. You need home-based businesses. Powerful, potent, home-based businesses. This is what you need. Because they are, of course, besides paying taxes, also supporting the society. Sports, culture, humanitarian, regardless what state did, we chipped in 4 million into 2 municipalities immediately. The next, basically, week, it was addressed as a mistake by the government, but we paid out 4 million, right? Voluntarily, without asking anyone. And this is what home-based businesses do. Because solidarity is in their genes, because this is their people, these are our employees, we are their neighbors, these are our relatives. Everyone knows everyone in this village called Slovenia, right? And there is such a bright future in front of us. Let's just agree on 3 targets and let's run, because running we do well, right?
And let's conclude this roundtable on this positive note. There is a lot of opportunities, despite we discussed today a lot of problems we have. But let's create a predictable environment. Let's grow, and for growth we need investors, domestic or foreign, no doubt about that. But it seems to me what we really need at the moment is collaboration. And let's strive for collaboration among the business associations and, of course, with the government or the policymakers. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, speakers, for these valuable inputs, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.